Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Cohen, each and every day, this cognitive meltdown of Donald Trump gets more severe. You and I have been covering this, though, for a while now. We've been covering his speeches. So whether he's praising Hannibal Lecter, the fictional cannibal, or whether he's out there talking about being eaten by sharks, he's been saying this in his campaign speeches. When he started that first speech, think about this, in Waco, Texas, on the 30th anniversary of the Waco siege, Donald Trump launched the campaign in Waco to pay homage to those who were domestic terrorists then and now, to the cult. That's where he chose to start it. And that's when the corporate media started normalizing it. And you and I were saying, what in the world are y'all see he's in Waco, Texas right now, changing the national anthem? Heck, Cohen, when do you think the corporate media is going to pick up that he's changed the national anthem to the J6th anthem? And then they're all going to be like, whoa, where did that come from? I don't know. Maybe if y'all do your damn job, you would know that. But from Waco, Texas to the Capitol Hill Club in Washington, D.C., this has been a disaster for Donald Trump, but frankly, a disaster and embarrassment, not just for the Republican Party, but for our country, Cohen, that this exists. That's why we have Political Beatdown, to call it out and to push back against all the disinfo.
Boy, how great would it be if mainstream media or the news would report things the way Midas Touch Network does? I mean, it would be a very, very different. Now, I'm not referring to, of course, Fox News, OAN, or Newsmax. I'm clearly referring to here Political Beatdown, my Mea Culpa podcast, Legal AF, the Meiselas brothers, right? Where you get the, where you get the, the raw and unfiltered truth about what the heck is really going on there. And when you talk about how, it's not just an embarrassment to our country, to our, to the Republican Party, but to the country, I would even expand it and say we're becoming almost like an embarrassment to the world when you have a person who's going to be the leader of one of our two political parties referencing time and time and time again a fictional character in a very psychological thriller, murder scenario, meaning Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs. I mean, this is who you're referring to when you're in a political speech, something that doesn't exist. I mean, it's so bizarre. It's so batshit crazy. And you can even see the faces, or you see the body language of the people that are there at these various rallies when he starts to talk about, Hannibal Lecter. They're like, what the fuck? Right? What is he talking about? But then he'll say something wacky or stupid, and then they laugh as if by saying something wacky or stupid, it negates the fact that he just spent 5 hours talking about the great Hannibal Lecter. I mean, who is he talking? Do you know, Ben, do you know what Donald's favorite movie is?
What's his favorite movie?
The Deliverance. Which, again, when we'd be on the airplane and he'd be like, all right, we're going to watch we watched that Going. Why are we watching? Let's watch something else. So then we'd watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Clint Eastwood movie, which also happens to be a fantastic movie. But when he starts talking about The Deliverance, listen, there's a lot about that movie, right? The banjo in the woods, and so on, Squeal Like a Pig. I mean, I don't know what it is, but He loves that movie. There's something very seriously wrong. The only difference in those days when his mental faculty were significantly better than they are today, he wouldn't openly discuss it as he does now, let alone at political rallies.
And meanwhile, while you have Donald Trump at the Capitol Hill Club ranting about Hannibal Lecter, talking about potentially having romantic relationships with Nancy Pelosi, and saying what a horrible city Milwaukee is, which is where the Republican National Convention is going to be. Like, that's what he was doing today. On the other hand, you have President Biden at the G7, where he met with President Zelensky of Ukraine. They signed a 10-year security agreement, which includes the supply of Patriot and squadrons of aircrafts, including F-16s. And so you have President Biden at the G7 actually doing things that we expect leaders to do. Now, if
so
for whatever...
nuts.
What do you say?
It's so nuts. Time out. Time out. I'm calling a fucking timeout. I'm throwing the flag for a second here. Salty, would you do me the favor, please, of going back to the... Jesus. Holy crap. Can you go back to the very first slide that you just showed here? This one. I mean, from Trump to House Republicans, right? Nancy Pelosi's daughter, who, by the way, I've met Alexandra. She is an incredible documentarian, is a wacko. No, she's not. Her daughter, first of all, Nancy Pelosi's daughter is a wacko. Her daughter is he talking about Nancy Pelosi or is he talking about Alexandra? I can't make it out here. But her daughter told me if things were different, Nancy and I would be perfect together. There's an age difference, though. What is he, Ben? Help me out here. What is the wackadoodle, the former wackadoodle in chief, actually saying here? Is it Alexandra that he's talking about? Because Alexandra's more my age, than Nancy. But what the hell is he talking about here? I mean, again, it just goes to the level of insanity that this man is spewing day in and day out. And by the way, I hope that Salty has the video of Donald walking down the steps. He's so scared that he's actually going to fall because his balance is not nearly as good as it used to be. If you watch, his knuckles actually turn white as he's walking down, holding on to the banister. Meanwhile, I think there's all of 5 or 6 stairs in the entire place. So if you have that, show it, because it's really going to show that he's really on a serious decline. And you're right. Let's now compare that to Joe Biden, who, whatever you want to say, Joe Biden's old. Okay, so is Donald. At the same point in time, Joe Biden, fell off a bicycle. Yeah, meanwhile, he's still riding a bicycle. I mean, it is really comical when Trump goes on these rants along with MAGA, attacking Joe Biden when he's there right now doing things that not only benefit America, but show America's strength around the world, versus Donald Trump, who's talking about either having a relationship with Alexandra or with Nancy Pelosi. Either way, I don't understand where that reference is even coming from.
Well, look, here's the thing. If you disagree with President Biden's policies at the G7 and you want to, which I happen to agree with President Biden's policies, I agree with the support we are providing Ukraine. I agree with our support of NATO. I agree with President Biden's foreign policy. But if you're part of another political party and you disagree with something, I don't know, maybe you think that there should be more F-16s. Maybe you think there should be less F-16s. Maybe you think that the funding is too low. Maybe you think the funding is too high. Maybe you think that there should be some alternative approach to how the funding takes place. Now, Michael Cohen, that's at least a normal political discourse. That's at least a normal discussion. You can come with your facts. I'll come with my facts, which are well researched. We'll talk through the recent sanctions by the Treasury Department on Russia, how that is impacting the Russian economy. We can talk about America's policies with its oil reserves and how that's broken down OPEC. And you could articulate counter positions. We could maybe try to find agreements, or maybe we'll just agree to disagree, but we can have intellectual debates and discussions on this issue through a framework of what's best for our country through traditional political lenses of we support democracy, we support NATO, we support our allies, and that's politics. Politics is not that, it shouldn't be that we have one political party now, the Democrats, that stand for democracy, whose leader is at the G7 discussing very serious issues and entering into very important deals. And on the other hand, you have one political party, the Republican Party, that's become a cult, whose leader is talking about Hannibal Lecter, is musing about having romantic relationships with Nancy Pelosi and calling Nancy Pelosi's daughter a wacko, as part of this ranting and raving, saying that the Department of Justice are dirty, no good bastards. He goes, this is what Trump says. They're dirty, no good bastards. And Taylor Swift, why doesn't Taylor Swift support me? Why is she endorsing the dope? He doesn't know how to get off a stage. And then telling stories about getting eaten by sharks or being electrocuted, or talking about connections to MIT because he has an uncle who taught there and stopped teaching in 1975. The point is, and this is how we started this episode, that the corporate media has normalized a very weird and deranged and unhinged politics as just the other side. And it isn't. It's not even politics what that is. It's freaking deranged cult behavior. It's not Republican. It's just weirdo cult stuff. And we need to all unite, put on our objective caps, and call it for what it is, and recognize the existential threats. And I just think today's another good example of that, Cohen.
Yeah, look, let me be clear about something. I want to refresh everybody's memory. You may recall in 2016 for that election, it wasn't Taylor Swift who was the big name as it relates to social media and so on. It was Kim Kardashian. And you may remember the relationship that, especially now, that Ivanka has fostered, as did Jared with Kanye. To the extent that, believe it or not, that Jared's brother is actually one of the initial investors in Skim. I mean, they're really entrenched into each other's family. But right now, it's not Kim Kardashian who is what media is talking about as we'll call it the queen, right? It's two people. It's Taylor Swift and Beyonce. You have those two on the queen bee, right? If you have those two on your side, you could only imagine just how strong you can be with social media. That's what Donald's looking for when he's sitting there and he's putting out there on social media, why would Taylor Swift support Joe Biden and all the nasty things that come with it, right? No, and question Taylor Swift's support for Biden. The reason is because if hypothetically Taylor Swift came out with a statement saying that she supports Donald, you could only imagine how that would explode on social media. And all he cares about is his name in lights, right? He doesn't care, what she stands for. He doesn't know what she stands for. In fact, if he knew what she stood for, he would understand that there isn't a prayer of a chance that she would support somebody who thinks, especially about women, misogyny, sexism, rape, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. These are not ideals that Taylor Swift, is a part of. In fact, she is the exact opposite. And so the notion that Donald thinks he could put out a tweet or a post or whatever the hell he wants to put out and think that he's going to bring Taylor Swift to his side because he's questioning why is she going to support Biden and that he thinks that she's beautiful, which, by the way, nobody needs him to tell us about her looks. She's a beautiful young woman. She's an incredibly talented young woman. Notice he doesn't talk about her incredible talent. He talks about her looks because he's superficial that way. It is so absurd that he thinks by putting out a post that he's going to change her mind and that he's going to go ahead and get her to switch and to now come out and support him. It's as delusional as his conversations or his comments about Hannibal Lecter, sharks, boats run by batteries, electrocution, and the rest of the crazy shit that he spews day in and day out.
Here's the main page of the highest distribution newspaper in Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Trump calls Milwaukee a horrible city weeks before RNC comes to town. And just think about it. Donald Trump has called, whether it's New York, Chicago, Iowa, now Milwaukee. He basically says the same thing about all American cities. And then they tried to pivot and say, oh, he was talking about the crime in Milwaukee. Well, the crime in Milwaukee is down 50% in the past 2 years. The crime was higher, of course, when he was in office, but crime is down in Milwaukee. So they tried to make all of these excuses for him, but that's what he does. He goes around city to city and he attacks the cities and he attacks America and he says what a bad country America is. It couldn't be a better gift for Vladimir Putin and our enemies. By the way, Christine Pelosi writes, speaking for all 4 Pelosi daughters, this is a lie. His deceitful, deranged obsession with our mother is yet another reason Donald Trump is unwell, unhinged, and unfit to step foot anywhere near her or the White House. And in light of all of this, Cohen, what I want to show all the brigaders right now, everybody watching this network, though, is that Donald Trump saying these things is not new. I think it is new that finally, after we've kept on reporting on it over and over again, finally corporate media can't hide it anymore as we get closer to November, which, by the way, you and I said that was going to happen, that all are going to be like, they don't do the national anthem at Republican events anymore. They do the J6 anthem. What? He's calling them hostages. When did that happen? All the time, starting all the time. That's when. So take a look at this. This is from Trump this past weekend where he tells that story about MIT, and he says that makes him smart, and he talks about how he'd rather be electrocuted than eaten by a shark. I want to play this for you, but then what I want to show you is this is actually part of his campaign speech. It wasn't like that just came out of nowhere. That's part of what he says when he goes around the country. So first, let me show you from this past weekend in Las Vegas. Let's play that clip.
So I said, let me ask you a question. And he said, nobody ever asked this question. And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too, a lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, you know, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to...
But just so you see that that is part of his speech, let me show you several months back, and I could show you multiple other examples of this, but let me go several months back in Iowa. Donald Trump, slurring his words, starts again riffing about how he'd rather be electrocuted to death than eaten by a shark. Here, play this clip.
But if I'm sitting down and that boat's going down and I'm on top of a battery and the water starts flooding in, I'm getting concerned. But then I look 10 yards to my left and there's a shark over there. So I have a choice of electrocution or shark. You know what I'm going to take? Electrocution. I will take electrocution every single time. Do we agree? I will take electrocution.
Yay,
Now-
yay. Everybody starts to agree. Listen, let me say something about this, Ben, please. This dumb fuckery of the orange Mandarin Mussolini is so stupid. Clearly, whoever the genius was that he was talking to, who clearly thought that this was, it's a great question. It's a great question. Nobody ever asked it before. No one ever asked it before because it's so fucking stupid that there's not even a response that anybody can make. Let me explain to you why this is dumb fuckery. First and foremost, a battery, assuming that there was a battery big enough to power a massive boat like he's talking about, right? And the boat is going down and the battery gets wet. There is not a constant current which is running through that battery that would cause an electrocution. You see, it's not the same, Donald, as if hypothetically you have what everybody has always seen in some of these horror movies where somebody has a hair dryer attached to, ready for this one, an electrical socket. You know what that is, right? That thing in the wall that has what's called an electrical current that is ongoing, constant, and repeating itself, right? When you throw the hair dryer in, what are you doing? You're creating a contact between the socket, between the current that is continuing and the water, right? Which is a conductor of electricity. The battery here is not connected to anything. The notion that that battery has a self-containing current is so absurd. It's so stupid that it defies logic. I truly hope that if this stupid shit comes up at the upcoming debate with Joe Biden, and if I was Joe Biden, I would already be thinking of how am I going to bring in this issue, this dumb fuckery, which I wish Biden would call it at the debate. I know he won't because he's not vulgar like I am in that respect. But if I was on the stage with Trump, I would turn around. I would turn around with a question. I would say, you do realize that the statements that you continuously make about batteries and sharks is tantamount to dumb fuckery. That without an ongoing and continuous electrical current, your whole theory, Mr. Uncle went to MIT 60 years ago, right, makes absolutely no sense. And it defies something that you defy over and over and over again, the existence of this crazy thing called science, right? You have no idea what you're talking about. You didn't understand science as it related to COVID, and you certainly don't understand science as it relates to batteries.
Well, here's the thing, though, Cohen. So Donald Trump shows up on Capitol Hill. He speaks with the MAGA House Republicans at the Capitol Hill Club. He says, Milwaukee, where we are having our convention, is a horrible city. He says Nancy Pelosi's daughter is a wacko. Her daughter told me if things were different, Nancy and I would be perfect together, but there's an age difference. He says that the Department of Justice is a bunch of dirty, no good bastards. He whines about Taylor Swift not supporting him. He praises Hannibal Lecter, right? I mean, if President Biden did any of those things, he'd probably lose my support. I know, like, he'd be done. He'd be over, right? But this is how the Associated Press covered Donald Trump's arrival in Washington, D.C. today. Now, Associated Press, right? They're supposed to be right down the middle. That's how they brand themselves, right? They're just reporting the facts and what's happening. Here's how the Associated Press just wrote about all of the things that we just talked about, which are just, quite frankly, as crazy and as unhinged as it can be. But according to the Associated Press, Donald Trump made a triumphant return to Capitol Hill on Thursday, his first with lawmakers since the January 6, 2021 attacks, embraced by energized House and Senate Republicans who find themselves reinvigorated by his bid to retake the White House. Also, just look at that photo right there. Zoom in on the photo right there. And this, Michael Cohen, is everything that is wrong with corporate media that wants to lead our country into a Hitler-like fascist regime. It's why we have to create this thing. This is why the Midas touch was created. I don't know, like, how you could objectively say the things that just went down and have somebody come up with that description unless your sole goal is to have America taken over by a dictator. Now, I want to talk about that with you. I also want to talk about what President Biden's been doing and a lot more, but we got to take our first quick break of the show. But before doing that, I want to thank everybody who joined us on that incredible Patreon meeting. How much fun.
Can I say before we go to very quickly, the rumor on the street is if Donald gets back into the White House, that he is going to remove George Washington from the $1 bill, and he's going to place, because you know that he's fixated on sharks, he's going to place Jabberjaw. In case any of you remember like I do, he's going to replace Jabberjaw with George Washington. Just so everybody knows that. That's going to be on your $1 bill. Jabberjaw.
Well, there you have it. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Patreon Zoom meeting. We had a great time meeting all of you. We're going to do another one in the next 2 weeks. So join the Patreon, patreon.com/political beatdown. And we post those secret links to have the meetings with Michael Cohen and myself. We answer mostly all of the questions. It's so great to see everybody in that Zoom meeting setting, and we try to do it at different times now. And it also helps support the growth of this show. So go right now, patreon.com/political beatdown. We don't have outside investors, so the way this show is funded, one of the ways is through Patreon and through our pro-democracy sponsors. We still have a lot of show. Don't go anywhere. Let's hear from some of those pro-democracy sponsors right now.
A small regret is slouching in the dentist chair thinking, I should have brushed and flossed better. A big health regret is listening to your doctor and thinking, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Better health today and when it matters most is why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is unlike any fruit and vegetable or green product. Field of Greens isn't watered down extracts. Field of Greens is an organic superfood. It's whole fruits and vegetables. Each fruit and vegetable was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and the immune system. And only Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. At your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Don't look back and say, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Field of Greens is key to better health today and when it matters most. Let's get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code BEAT. That's promo code BEAT at fieldofgreens.com.
It's hot outside, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend that you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA, and they use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. And you know what? They feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some five-star hotels. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature, again, all night long, no matter the weather, so that you get better sleep every single night. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7%, get a look, 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. So there's no more gross odors too. Go to trymiracle.com/beat to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code BEAT, B-E-A-T, at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save, get a load of this, an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Now upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. And go to trymiracle.com/beat and use the code BEAT to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/beat to treat yourself. And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back. This is Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. I saw a lot of people who were talking about really enjoying the Zoom meeting we had on our Patreon. And so if you attended the Zoom meeting and you're here right now, tell the other people who may be thinking about joining if you think it's worth it. So to all of our Patreon members, I know sometimes people may be on the fence. So if you're in the comments and you are a member of the Patreon, share with others whether you think it's worth it or if you think it's a waste. Whatever you, be honest and tell others what you think about it, because there may be people saying, should I join? Should I not join? One more time, it's patreon.com/political beatdown. We got a great comment too I saw during the break, and it reminded me. So this is from Vic, and Vic says, Stormy Daniels actually said that Shark Week was on the TV in the background during the less than 1 minute when she and Donald Trump or whatever, and that he had made her actually watch Shark Week while he was in the hotel with her.
If we can go back, I don't think that's the one that you really wanted to read. I think you wanted to read the one underneath from Michelle Petrillo. Michael has the best smile, and it's good to see him smile. Well, thank you, Michelle. I think it's more important than the fact that Trump doesn't realize that Sharknado is not real, right? and that he is absolutely just obsessed with sharks. And I don't know why, considering he doesn't go in the ocean, but neither here nor there.
And then I just wanted to fact check that. So I saw some of these articles from the New York magazine Intelligencer. The Times, Stormy Daniels exposed Trump's weird shark phobia. And then this one was from Vulture, March 26, 2018. Stormy Daniels says her alone time with Trump included watching a Shark Week documentary. So there, I thought there were those deep-seated shark issues, and that reminded me of that as well. Then there's the third comment there, Michael, from Heather B, who says, Michael, what the heck is wrong with Trump? Is this dementia, or is he bipolar, or what? Well, you've been with him more than almost anybody from the past. You see him now. What do you make of it?
Well, let me be clear that Donald Trump is not bipolar, right? And that's a very serious condition, and I won't even get into it to poke fun, because it's a condition that ruins certain people's lives. As far as I'm concerned, is it dementia? I think it's definitely some form of early onset of dementia. It's something I believe that both his parents suffered from. But I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor either. I'm a disbarred lawyer, right? So far from me to turn around and to give him a medical diagnosis. But one thing I can turn around and tell you without it being medically related is that, this goofball is batshit crazy.
I want to go also to, we talked about how Trump keeps on bringing up Hannibal Lecter. He brought up Hannibal Lecter today once again at this speech at the Capitol Hill Club. And then the Associated Press said, what a triumphant visit it was. What a triumphant visit Trump's return was, where he talks about Hannibal Lecter and how he attacks the city of Milwaukee and says it's a horrible city, and talks about being in a romantic relationship with Nancy Pelosi and calls people bastards. According to corporate media, that's triumphant in their view, versus calling out could you imagine what the headline would be from Associated Press if President Biden got up there and started talking about Hannibal Lecter over and over again? But just want to show you, though, that that's part of a pattern with him. And so he talked about it, for example, in that Wildwood, New Jersey event where he talks about Hannibal again. Here, let me show you this first one, just so you see, from Wildwood, New Jersey, where he brought up the late, great Hannibal Lecter. Let's play that clip. Let's play it.
But if I'm sitting down and that boat's going down and I'm on top of a battery and the water starts flooding in, why? Because that's a vicious thing. I said, that's Silence of the Lamb. You know what that is? Has anybody seen Silence of the Lambs? Hannibal Lecter, how great an actor was he? You know why I like him? Because he said on television, on one of the, I love Donald Trump, so I love him. I love him. I love him. He said that a long time ago, and once he said that, he was in my camp. I was in his camp. Yeah, I don't care if he was the worst actor. I'd say he was great to me.
Just so you know, that last one was not the Wildwood, New Jersey one. That's him speaking in Iowa. I just want to show you that he goes around the country talking about Hannibal Lecter. He also goes around the country in his traveling fascist circus events, and he tells the same.
Did Anthony Hopkins, Ben? Can someone fact check that? Did Anthony Hopkins say that Donald Trump is fantastic?
I'm pretty confident that he's never said that before. Bless you. But then Donald Trump goes around and says, as part of his speech, he tells this story about one of his kind of demeaning his attacks on the transgender community is that it's like unfair competition in the weight room. So he tells the story about how he says a woman's like lifting weights, and then he describes the woman lifting weights. And this is part of his speech where he goes up there in front of his crowd and he like makes this noise. So, like why that's the pretext of the story. But then he goes up there and he's like, and Cohen, I know you've commented on this before, but this is part of the speech. Here, play it.
And they're proud, they're clapping, they're going crazy. I can't do it, Mom. I can't. Boom.
Just so you see, he does that in the other one. Here's just another speech where he does that. Let me show you that. Let's play it.
And just bad news, bad things are happening. Mom, I'm sorry.
And then he talks about how he thinks he has a better body than President Joe Biden. Here, play this clip.
He's got a consultant somewhere. This is the worst consultant in politics that thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, right? No, he spends so much time at the beach. And, how do you do that? And, I have a much better body than him. But I'm not really sure that I want to expose it with the sun blaring down and the sand, the surf, the wind, it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, that's just not normal politics. That's not that behavior. That's not triumphant. That's not normal.
Well, I think on the debate, Joe Biden should turn around and say, I'm prepared to go shirtless in front of America if you are. Right? It may get, X-rated where they're going to have to block out, Donald Trump's chest. But I can assure you, right? It doesn't, you don't even have to take off the shirt to realize who of the two of them, right, is in better shape, right? I mean, one guy's big, his big exercise is lifting a double cheeseburger, a Big Mac with cheese to his mouth. The other guy actually gets onto a bicycle. He takes his long walks and yada yada. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. It's like turning around, and it's almost like as ridiculous as anything I've ever seen. I mean, there's 1,001 examples, each and every one of us are thinking about in our head right now. I mean, stop it, right? Why would you go after the one thing, especially that is not true? You want to turn around and say, okay, I'm a better businessman than Joe Biden. I've made more money than Joe Biden over the course of my 50 plus years of business. Okay. There are things that we can all say about how he made his money and so on, but that would probably be a true statement. But it's almost like Trump saying to Arnold Schwarzenegger or to Sylvester Stallone that I have a better body than you do. There are people that go to the gym. There are people that ride bicycles and do things for their health. And then there's Donald Trump, who doesn't believe in exercise. Here's something that's interesting. And I've heard him say it many, many times. And I guarantee if you fact check it, you'll find it too. But Donald Trump does not believe in working out. He doesn't believe in going to the gym because, ready for this one, Brigaders, you can't make this shit up. And this is true. And I really hope that a few of you out there start to Google it and check. Because every human is born with what Donald considers to be your life energy, right? And if you use up that life energy by going to the gym, then you die earlier. He truly believes that.
Wow. All right. Let me show you from Capitol Hill, though, what the MAGA Republicans were saying and compare that to what the Democrats have been saying. So this is just so embarrassing. So this is Marjorie Taylor Greene's response following Donald Trump speaking at the Capitol Hill Club. Yes, it is a very weird cult. Here, play this clip.
I really found his speech to be one of my favorite speeches. He came in, talked to the conference, was very honest. He was funny. He was joking around constantly with everyone. He was really sweet to me. He said to Speaker Johnson, he goes, okay, you got one more seat. You need to be tougher. He saw me. I was sitting back a little ways. He saw me in there and he was like, hello, Marjorie. He's always so sweet and recognizes me. And he said, are you being nice? He was joking. Are you being nice to Speaker Johnson? And I said, eh. And he said, okay, be nice to him. And I nodded my head. And then
it's some weirdo stuff. You know how sometimes I just sometimes we found the fact check. Let's see it.
Fact check. Michael Cohen found it. Okay. This is from CNN. There you go. All right. And it's right back to the batteries. Other than golf, he considers exercise misguided, arguing that a person like a battery, let me do it in Donald's, like a battery, is born with a finite amount of energy, right? And this is Evan Asnos in a piece entitled How Trump Could Get Fired that appeared in the May 8th edition of the New Yorker, all right? This was by Chris Cillizza on May 15th of 2017 in CNN, right? I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. This just goes to a point that this man is so fundamentally flawed, that his thinking is so fundamentally flawed, that we are all born with a certain amount of life energy and therefore expending it stupidly in a gym, right? Which obviously what he's saying, because he plays a lot of golf, that golf is not really a sport that you expend too much energy on. But going to the gym would, and that would, of course, shorten your life. But then again, like I said, goes right back to this whole thing about batteries and sharks and batteries. Amazing.
You know, when I see clips like that from Marjorie Taylor Greene or some of these other MAGA Republicans, and then I see like the Associated Press write a headline and like the stuff that Donald Trump is saying is just the most crazy, deranged things. Sometimes the way I just feel it, or I try to explain it, it's like being in a zombie movie and like the zombies like keep getting new people, and it's just like, to get these zombies away from, like, what are you talking about? Like, could we just be normal? And like they're just trying to reach out and get more and more Americans to like think that this crazy stuff is normal. And then like you find out that one of your friends or someone that you knew is like buying into this like life energy crap, or saying the shark stuff, or repeating all this crazy Trumpian stuff. And it's just like, the zombies got to know, like, this is crazy. We just got to stand up for our country. And I just think sometimes though, they want us to feel that this craziness and this unhinged dystopian American carnage vision of America is unstoppable, and that's going to take over. And they want us to feel there's nothing we can do. And they part of what they want to do is take away our power by just thinking that this craziness is never going to end. And look, I sincerely believe that the true silent majority of this country just wants normalcy, and just wants democracy, and just wants to not have these MAGAs go after their freedom. And I just think it is so important on this brigader community to go out and to just tell the truth, and just to let people know what's up and what the facts are and what's really going on here. And I'm glad we have pro-democracy Democrats. The Democratic Party is now the party of law and order by far. The Democratic Party is the only law and order party, the only party that supports democracy, and the only party that supports your freedoms. Period. That's it. That's why I'm supportive of it. Those values align with mine.
I know why Donald likes Marjorie Taylor Greene and Marjorie Toilet Greene cares for Von Schützenpants. Because they are both bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, and they remind one another of each other. And there's no doubt that that's got to be the reason, because I can't think of anything else that puts the two of them in the same boat, in the same category.
I want to say this too, this from a new Gallup poll. A record high percentage of voters told Gallup that abortion is the issue that will determine their vote this election cycle. Nearly 3/4 of those single issue voters are pro-choice, or as I call it right now, pro-freedom, and keeping away the MAGA Republicans from taking away women's reproductive freedoms and rights. Let me just share with you some of what the pro-democracy Democrats are saying, because this always motivates me as well when I see this new group of Democrats in Congress who are fighters, who are pushing back. Here's Congressmember Eric Swalwell saying, I just want a show of hands here. A show of hands here. Watch what he has to say. Play this clip.
I want to talk a little bit about judicial bias, because they've suggested that there's a bias that occurred in this case. Ambassador Eisen, in Donald Trump's other case, where he's alleged to have stolen national security secrets, Who is the judge? Who appointed the judge to the bench in the Southern Florida federal case?
Unlike the special counsel in the Hunter Biden prosecution, who is a Trump holdover, David Weiss, that was a last minute, referring back to our history, midnight appointment, you can call it, by Donald Trump of Judge Eileen Cannon.
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is complaining about bias in his case, and he's on trial for stealing national security documents with a judge that he appointed? Well, that's interesting. I didn't hear any of you all talking about that. Well, let's talk about the Supreme Court, who's deciding whether he has absolute immunity and can send the Navy SEALs to kill any of his opponents, as he alleges in his arguments that he can do. One judge is flying an insurrection flag in solidarity with the insurrection on January 6th that tried to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election. Another judge's wife was at the president's speech on January 6th, right before the insurrection occurred.
And then let me show you the other one that I wanted to show you here. Play this clip.
Just a show of hands for anyone in the room who hung out with a felon today. Hey guys, probably want to get your hands up if you were hanging out with convicted felon Donald Trump. I don't think anyone on our side did, but that's why we're here.
I want to show you Congress member Adam Schiff. Here's what he had to say. Play the clip.
I want to begin by quoting the jury in the Manhattan hush money payment trial. Guilty, 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 guilty. This was what the jury pronounced unanimously on every count. My Republican colleagues don't really contest Donald Trump's guilt. This is the fascinating thing. Their argument is essentially he should never have been prosecuted, or they falsely claim it was a political prosecution, or they falsely claim it should have been a misdemeanor, not a felony. But they don't contest, not really, that Donald Trump was making hush money payments to a porn star to hide their affair from voters. What they're really saying is they're more than comfortable nominating and electing as the President of the United States someone making hush money payments to a porn star. The party formerly of the moral majority is now, I suppose, hoping to fashion some kind of immoral majority to reinstate Donald Trump as president.
Powerful stuff right there, right? And then just to prove the point, though, Cohen, here's MAGA Republican Congresswoman Spars. And what she says is that now Americans are all very worried that if they make hush money payments to porn stars and falsify business records, they could be prosecuted. So that's what MAGA was talking about today at the hearing. Here, listen to Congresswoman Spars.
Interestingly enough, when talking about intimidation, threatening, and disinformation, I would say, I'm not an attorney. I'm actually a CPA and been involved with finances for a very long time. And I think a lot of Americans should be intimidated and worried if they pay bill to attorney and put it legal expense, and they can have 34 felony counts for that. That is true intimidation. That is what the law is, so that would make anyone very nervous, but
Zombies, Cohen, get these men. It's like zombies, right? Like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? People.
Nobody knows, including Congresswoman Sparks, including Jim Begg Jordan, including Marjorie Toilet Green. They're all, they're all doing what they do best, and that's kissing the orange ass, plain and simple. I mean, No, she's not drunk and she's not high. She's just in the cult, plain and simple. And, look, as we sort of come to the hour here on Political Beatdown, I thought long and hard about this one, about who deserves today the two-finger salute. And no, it's not Congresswoman Spars. It's not Jim Beg Jordan again. It's not Marjorie Toilet Green again. It's not going to be Donald Trump again. In fact, I'll tell you who gets the two-finger salute. All of these fucking idiots that keep going to his rally. And every single time he says something absurd, insane, racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, and they laugh about it and they egg him on as if this is some sort of a fucking comedy cafe that they're attending instead of a political rally where you're supposed to be talking about what you're going to do to benefit the American people, what you're supposed to be doing in order to protect America and to do more for the American people, as opposed to what the American people can do for you. To all of you idiots wearing the red hats that are helping to hide your lobotomy scars, fuck you.
Michael Cohen, a lot of people in the chat want to find a way to get a signed copy of your books. I've been getting a lot of DMs, a lot of messages. You and I should figure out, maybe we make it available on Patreon or otherwise and figure out a way to do that big. But I just want to acknowledge everybody's request. You and I will figure out however we want to do it. You can figure out the best way, Cohen, to do it. And then we'll report back next week to everybody. But one way possible is to put a link to like a secret site to buy it on Patreon. But alternatively, we can figure out another way, maybe do an auction. You and I have been talking about some of the stuff offline. We'll get back to all the brigaders sometime next week with a plan that's acceptable to Cohen and that's acceptable to the brigaders and makes everybody happy. But we hear you on that request. I want to thank everybody who joined that Patreon. It helps. Let's face it. The competition is funded by decabillionaires who are pushing out disinformation. So the fact that we fund this through pro-democracy sponsors, Patreon, and things like that, that's our way to keep this truly independent and to also find a way to keep building. So patreon.com/political beatdown. And heck, it's also very fun to have those Zoom meetings with you. I really enjoy those greatly. I want to remind everybody as well to subscribe to Mea Culpa Blue.
Yes.
Some great guests there as well. Not red, blue. Easy to remember, right? There it is. Michael Cohen's Mea Culpa. Search wherever you get your audio podcasts. And the same thing, you search and download Political Beatdown on audio podcasts too. It helps us with the rankings on the Apple charts. And that goes a long way to just to help the show. A reminder as well, store.MeidasTouch.com is where you can get all the best pro-democracy gear, but especially the Mea Culpa Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility shirts, the original, the authentic,
the real ones,
the exhibit that was introduced during the cross-examination of Michael Cohen. There it is, 100% union made, 100%.
And you know what else we're going to do, Ben? I think what we'll do is we'll figure out, maybe we'll do like 5 or 10 of those shirts, and I'll sign them with a big giant, marker, for somebody we can either auction them off or maybe we'll do something also, whether it'll be on Patreon or we'll do it just through our Political Beatdown. But that's a great idea, between the books, signed, or maybe the shirt.
I love it. I love it. Also, reminder, today, the Midas Touch podcast I do with my brothers will be live at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Don't miss that. Again, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And Cohen, it's great to have you back. Beatdown Brigaders, it's great to have all of you here in this chat. We're so grateful for all of you and helping us continue to expand this pro-democracy community. I feel confident right now. I feel momentum. I feel there's a lot more work that we have to do together, a lot more work, but I feel good. Let's keep kind of a steady hand. Let's focus on the work ahead of us. Let's always remember that we have each other in this community. We could lean on each other. And we're so grateful for everything you do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Shout out to the Brigaders. Shout out to the Midas Mighty.